Attend the world's best business workshop led by America's #1 business coach for free by subscribing on iTunes and leaving us an objective review. Claim your tickets by emailing us proof that you did it and your contact information to info@thrivetimeshow.com.
All right, Thrive Nation, welcome back to the conversation. It is the Thrive Time Show. On your podcast download, which means that people are listening right now to exclusive content you cannot find on the radio. The radio is very common. The podcast is exclusive. Are you fired up doing the podcast?
I feel a little different when we do podcasts than our radio show, which we turn our radio show into podcast, so they're a podcast also.
But it feels more froggy.
Yeah, it does. It feels a little edgier. It feels a little kind of almost like,
This is where we can be real.
This is where we can really get down to it.
Right. And so we have Pastor Brian Gibson on the show today. He's
that's going to keep
a
us from saying
pastor
something.
of a church that it's in River City. It's in Owensboro. It's called River City Church. And we have Wes Carter, his law firm, Winters and King, where he's a partner. They represent Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, Joyce Myers, a lot of the top, Craig Rochelle. They represent some of the top pastors on the planet. Pastor Brian has a church of over 1,000 people, and he's also, would you call it co-pastoring a flock of 1,000 people as well as in Amarillo? Or how would you describe that?
Yes, sir. I'd call it interim right now.
Right, interim.
Yes.
Okay, so your father-in-law pastors a church in Amarillo,
yes,
and
sir.
he had a stroke recently.
He did. He had a mini stroke, so symptoms came on, but then they're all gone. So we're thankful for that. But to decompress him, we've taken the leadership of the church, and the staff is now answering, relating to us. So is the church's senior pastors.
So two churches at the same time.
Yes, sir. About 1,000 people apiece, about 1,000 miles apart.
Okay. Now, the people of Amarillo are known to be really calm, nice people, never having issues.
Never.
People of Owensboro never have
there.
any issues there. So you've got a perfect world there, perfect people you're pastoring. But I want to ask you, on behalf of all the pastors who could not be on the show today, not for you so much, but for the pastors who couldn't be on the show today, what are some questions that you would ask Wes Carter, the attorney who represents some of the top attorneys on the planet? What are some questions that you would ask Wes Carter?
Let's start with this, Wes.
All right.
A lot of pastors, they got a heart for people. They have a heart for the Word of God. They care for their sheep. They're probably not legal minds. A lot of them probably aren't business minds or business savvy. What are some of the easy biggest holes you see legally in protecting an entire ministry or a church? Because it's something that needs to be protected. It's valuable to the people,
Yes.
valuable to God.
One of the most dangerous ones I see, and you see these kind of wives' tales pop up online periodically, is that I don't need a corporation for my church. I have a corporation soul, or I'm not going to submit myself to the government's authority. And that's one of the most dangerous things to do, because without the existence of any kind of corporation for your church, then if I'm going to sue you, my only option is to come sue all of you individually.
Okay.
So you're holding the church's property in trust, and it's very common, especially used to be on the East Coast. There were times in Virginia and some in Northeast where churches couldn't be incorporated in earlier times in our country's history. And so that mixed with some bad tax advice and kind of these failing constitutional arguments, that's one of the most dangerous ones I see, is that we just meet together. We don't have a corporation. We tithe, but we're not worried about our tax deductions. So we're just out there doing it. And then someone falls or gets hurt at camp, or one of the many things that happen in the church when you're dealing with kids and youth usually. And then all the board members, all the deacons, the pastor, the pastor's wife, they all get sued individually and let the court sort it out.
Everyone's liable then instead of the organization.
Right. There's a lot of risk with that. When it's a simple, like a 24-hour process to set up a corporation,
Sure.
Set up your own separate bank account. It keeps things cleaner, neater, easier to manage. So that would be probably one of the biggest ones I see where I'm like, oh no.
Pastor Brian, is that helpful? Does that answer your question there?
Oh, that helps, guys. And can I piggyback one more that goes right with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so tell me, you hear different guys argue on what type of entity to set up, what type of legal covering to set up. Must they set up a 501c3, or does such a vehicle exist outside of that?
It's a great question. So we talked about you set up your corporation, just the legal entity that you're going to do business under. The rule is the IRS has a special exemption from applying for 501c3 status for a church. So as long as you operate under the IRS's criteria of what a church is, you're automatically exempt without applying. But the important thing to remember is you're still subject to all the same rules. Unless you're paying income tax and none of your people are getting tax deductions, you're subject to the exact same rules as every other 501c3. And a lot of times we suggest clients go ahead and apply for 501c3 status, because when you start doing company donations, a lot of policies, a lot of public schools, a lot of people won't give to you if the IRS hasn't determined that you're a 501c3. And you run the risk that the IRS comes in, if you're doing something outside the box, a coffee shop church, a prison ministry, something like that, and says, well, you never did qualify as a church.
I have a really crazy offensive question, and Z, I'm going to kind of filter it through you.
Oh, come on, bring
So here we go. A friend of mine, this is a true story, and I won't tell you what city this is in, but a friend of mine had somebody in his church that he felt like he should have fired. Now, this was a school, okay? They had a church and a school, okay? Those are people who are from Tulsa. You might guess as to what this is, but it's a church and they have a school. And they had somebody who did some weird stuff, and you say, now in my office, I had somebody, this is probably, 5 years ago, who followed one of our lady employees into the bathroom. And I said, hey, that's not the bathroom you go in, had to let him go, boom. This guy, though, he's in ministry. He says, it was alleged, but we've never had any problems with him before. And so long story short, this church, I'll just say it's in our region, this school is no longer a school. And it came out that they had a systemic issue of this happening. So I think an outgrowth of a lot of churches is a school. And so the pastor, I know this guy, and his heart was, I don't want to fire somebody based on an allegation. But it came out that this was happening systemically and ended up on the news, all the media. Long story short, the school's no more. And there was a teacher that harassed and actually assaulted many kids. But I see in ministry a lot of pastors that kind of turned a blind eye to anything where, quote unquote, judgment, because they want to assume everyone's innocent until proven guilty. They want to love everybody. They want to, and so Z, have you ever met people in ministry, Z, that it's almost like they're almost like they're blind to obvious. Like in business, you would just whack a guy. You'd fire him. You go, hey, you're gone.
Whack-a-mole.
But in ministry, it seems like some people in ministry give people a hall pass well beyond at the time where even it's dangerous. They're just like, well, I can't. Have you ever seen this before? You heard of these kind of situations?
Yeah, within the industry of church, obviously forgiveness is a huge message, and it is a powerful message. But I think at some point, you need to run the wolves away from your flock. At some point, you've got to.
And we're not pastors. I'm just saying. I've seen this with my buddies who are in ministry.
In the theory, and I've seen with business owners too. You don't have to be in the ministry to have that mindset of keeping someone around too long, and now they've become a virus. They've become a cancer in your organization. And other people now are modeling them. Other people are doing their bad habits, and they're saying, "Well, I guess if it's okay for Billy to do that, then it must be okay for
my
me to do
question I
this."
would have,
Yeah.
Before we get to Pastor Brian's next question for you, Wes, is in ministries, have you not seen a tendency to be more lenient with rule violations than in business? Or is it the same? Or what advice would you have for the pastors out there who are, somebody's obviously violating a rule? In this particular case, it was a sexual assault, and it was numerous times where the pastor was like, well, I don't know.
You definitely encounter, I spend more of my time than I'd care to even count dealing with these kinds of issues with churches, because they often end up in litigation and big cases. And so it's not right. It's multiple issues. One, someone does it while they're on staff. That's one thing, and you kind of give them grace, too much grace. Two is they did it before they got on staff. They've gone through a restoration process, and you bring them on, but you have to understand you're bringing them on with a magnification of risk if they ever do it again. And then three is you have people who target churches as easy targets. So you have outside people trying to do it in the church, and you turn a blind eye thinking the best of people. So it just comes up in so many areas. And I like to tell people you have to switch your mind, your perspective, and not think of it as you as the pastor of that individual, but think of it as a good stewardship issue. You are a steward of the church, what God's given you, and to protect that church, you have to take action.
Okay, I want to share with this for all share this with you for all the pastors out there listening or all the people in ministry. You know this seems obvious, but your standards have to be so much higher than anybody else because people are always trying to find a problem with churches. They're always trying to point out that's hypocrisy over there. And so you just have to hold yourself to a high standard. I'm telling you this. The church I've gone to for a while, one of the things they do is the pastor has set a rule that, if an adult goes into the restroom with a kid, there has to be 2 adults that go in, and they have to set that like next level. Like you can't let kids be checked out of the kids' church unless there's actual ID provided. And I would just say, if you're in ministry, please go to the nth degree, be over transparent, because the world is trying to take you down. They're trying to prove that you're not doing things the right way. But Pastor Brian, I want to ask you, do you have anything you want to add to that, or what's your next question?
Oh no, that is massive. And I think security cameras make so much sense now.
Yeah, and they're cheap.
It's cheap, and it's a deterrent, and people know it's there, and any would-be predator knows the eye in the sky does not lie, right? They know it's there. It's powerful.
And it protects your staff from false allegations as well.
Yeah, it covers you so many different ways. So I love that. I think there has to be a different standard, too, when we're ministering to sheep. As a pastor, I see sheep through one light, right? But I have a different standard for shepherds, the way they behave. So there's a different level of scrutiny. There's different things I'm expecting. And as a shepherd, I believe I must feed the sheep, and I also must kill the wolves.
So in other words, you don't want your shepherds eating the grass. I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
That's for the sheep, and you can't let the wolves just ramsack the sheep, right?
Yeah.
It is up to you.
Those sheep are a tasty meal. I'm just going to say, as a sidebar, sheep is a tasty meal.
No, I love to eat lamb, but I don't want to feed souls to animals. So here would be my next question for Z.
Ooh, for me,
yes.
hot seat. Well, that's what I get for speaking up about the whole eating the grass.
You will regret that.
I've got that.
Now it's on
now
you,
the attention's
right?
on me.
Yeah, it's like the class.
It's kind of like when you're in church, and all of a sudden the pastor's making a point, and he's looking right at you. You're like, you can't get small enough in your chair. You're like, oh no, get down.
Why is he talking to me?
Why are you talking to me about that? Stop.
How did he know?
Stop. Look away, Wicka-willy. Okay.
Yeah, and then when they call you by name and you're not expecting.
Oh yeah, that's the best.
Crazy.
That's the best.
Okay, as a businessman. I love your kind, your type. I was raised by your type, and I want to see a lot of pastors. I think they don't know how to relate to businessmen. Sometimes they're intimidated by them, right? Is this guy trying to control me with their money or their power?
Power.
Yeah, they're power brokers. So
do you mind if I attach these cords to your arms and I stand above you and kind of flop around you?
Master.
And you do your arms?
Yes.
It's just a thing I do. No,
so you see, sometimes I see guys handle your type, I'll say it like that, in 2 different ways. One, they run from you. Mm-hmm. They don't understand your purpose in the kingdom.
Correct.
And the other guy glues himself to you because, he's wanting to use you for your research.
Attention,
Absolutely.
church. This Sunday, we're going to put a banner up there. It says, sponsored by Pepsi. Nothing weird here. Just welcome to my church, sponsored by Pepsi.
So tell me, what are you looking for in a leader, in a church? Either one of you could answer this. I'd love to hear Z first. What are you looking for in a pastor, and what are some of those attributes? How would you like a man like that to relate to you?
Well, number one, I've had that happen to me in both categories, and I didn't like either one.
Okay.
So I want a guy who's just genuine. He's just a friend, and doesn't assume one way or the other. Doesn't assume that I'm there to try to wield some kind of try to be
laws of power.
I need a whole row reserved for me every single Sunday. That's just silly,
Sure.
So a lot of it is you just want him to be real and genuine, be your friend, and treat you like you're a regular guy, And then I've also had them to where they just glammed onto you, and next thing you know, you're like, every time you turn around, they're at your business. Hey, how's it going today? You're like, hey,
I have
it's getting weird. I
have a pretty harsh take on this.
Weird. Yeah.
I have a harsh take on this.
Yeah.
The Bible that I'm aware of, those are people who are into the concept of tithing would believe that, Pastor Brian, we're supposed to give what percentage of our income?
10% is bottom level.
Okay. So what will happen is a lot of pastors will kind of you get the two camps. Let's say the one that panders to the business guy. And I've seen this happen to me before. They want to hang out with you. They're your buddy. They're on it. 'Cause they go, I know you. You own the DJ business and the haircut business and the photography. Okay, we're going to talk. But they feel like that pro rata, if my income is a certain amount, they feel like if they do that all of a sudden I'm going to give more than 10%, more than 50%. It's almost like they're really, really, really catering to you. And I would just say, on behalf of all the business owners I know, we're going to church because we know that you're our source of, you know more about the Bible than we do. And we're looking to you as a source of wisdom. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to be a source of wisdom. And pro rata, I'm going to give a percentage of my income, whether I make a little or a lot or a lot. And I think a lot of people expect you to know more about, it's almost like because you make more money, they kind of look for you to have more wisdom about how life works. And I've seen that a lot where a pastor will pull me aside and ask me some questions where I'm like, you're the pastor. I don't know. And I've had that happen. I mean, at least I can think of, 4 times where a pastor's pulled me aside and go, hey, I have a question. And I'm going, that's in the Bible. And that's not my book that I know a whole lot about. So I would just say this, is I would like to be treated like a member of your congregation, and just know that pro rata, percentage-wise, I'm going to give the same as anybody else, proportionate to my income. And then I would also say this, is I'd beware of the business guy who wants to give a lot, but he wants to say, your sermon next week should be about this.
Oh, yeah.
Because I see that a lot. I mean, a lot, where it's the guy who gives a lot, he wants to, and it's the nonprofits of all kind, but I see it's like, hey, I'll give a lot, but I really do. I mean, if it's not too much to ask, I'd like you to do a sermon on, and then it's like it's just they're dictating what you want to talk about. And I think I don't know. I just think that's what my perspective.
And let me tell you a move I see sometimes that I've really liked is one of the first people you hire as a church often is a business pastor. Because like you said, a lot of ministry people aren't business minded. They don't like numbers. And I've seen pastors that will segregate themselves from the tithing records. So they have no clue who is tithing what. And it's a defense against someone accusing them of favoritism. Yeah. And it also helps prevent them, because we're all human, to say, I'm not going to favor this guy because I have no idea what he's giving.
I see.
That's a cool move. That's a cool move, but it's a move.
Yeah. Now, Pastor Brian, what's another question? What would be the final question you might have for Dr. Z or Mr. Wes Carter on behalf of all the pastors out there listening, or yourself, my friend?
I think, tell me this, either one of you, but let's say from your perspective, your professional perspective, when you walk into the church as a whole, not just the leadership himself, but what are you looking for in that ministry, in that church? What's the primary thing that moves you? And then what are the primary things that turn you off? Ooh. And you're like, man, this is not, because I don't just want to hear what you like about us. I want to know what you don't like about us, so we can see it from your
Can we go with Wes first?
Okay.
Go with Wes first, because I feel like Z's going to bring the thunder.
He will.
I just
Wes
want
is the lightning because the thunder follows.
Wes is more copacetic. He's an agreeable guy. You're going to bring the thunder, and we're all just going to go.
Well, lightning.
Oh, no.
I mean, thunder does follow the.
And I'll bring you to not from my legal perspective, but me as a person.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the thing that kept me at the church I'm at now. I walked into the congregation, and I know most of the pastors in town, so it's hard for me to find the congregation to start with.
You represent them, right?
Yeah. So I walk in the congregation, and I'm sitting down, and there is a homeless person two seats next to me. And, I mean, you can tell, obviously, they're homeless. And then there's a doctor I know, a lawyer I know, some very poor people from, you can tell, just from the way they're dressed. I mean, and worship starts, everybody's praising together. They were welcomed during mingle time. And that struck a chord with me. I saw that everyone was treated equal in the congregation. Come as you are. Nobody's trying to avoid you. Everybody's shaking your hand, loving on you, telling you, welcome, you're here. And that struck a chord with me because I don't want to be treated special. I want to go somewhere where everyone's welcome to come as you are. We all have our own messes, and that's what attracted me to this particular church.
That's awesome. Ministering to everyone. Dr.
Z, here we go.
3 things.
3 things.
You can break it down, and you know this, I know. I'm pretty sure you do. And children's ministry, you'll go wherever your kids want to go.
True.
For the most part, you'll be like, my kids are excited about going to church. My kids want to go to church. We're going to that church.
True story. River City Church. My kids got in the car, or in Kentucky, my kid said, "Can we come back like every week?" Because we really, and these are 6-year-olds.
Yeah,
they're not saying this because it's unprompted. I said, "Guys, how'd you like church today?" And they go, "We want to come back like every week."
Clay, how many of your 5 kids would you take a bullet for? All 5 of them.
All 5.
Right. I mean, we want.
That's a profound question.
And that is, so our children is when you're a parent. Now, if you're not a parent, then that doesn't apply to that. So the other 2 things that are left over are worship. It's got to have great worship. There's so much great music out there. There's so many great songs. Just singing, I can only imagine every Sunday, for the rest of the time. You'll hit it. You'll do okay.
Quick, B- praise and worship is rough. As a business guy, because we're always looking for excellence in everything. And if it's B- or C+, do you not Z? You go. I mean, you want to. You still
right.
It's hard to turn a blind eye to.
Yeah, bring the heat. There's so many great songs out there. There's so much great music out there. There's so many talented people out there, and so the worship's got to rock it. And
You're
then,
a
of
music
course,
guy.
The message. I mean, the pastor has to be enthusiasm, and you have to believe him, and he has to deliver that in a way that you go, I connect with him, and I connect with what he's saying, and I left today smarter than when I got here. So I learned something.
Wow.
It's not just a rah. It's I learned something, and that's important, I think. And so, because then you feel like you're growing, you feel like you're stepping in the right direction. So you hit those 3 things, and go get a bigger building right now because it's on.
When we come back to our next podcaster, Pastor Jessie, who is married to Pastor Brian, she gets a session inside the dojo of Mojo. She can ask Dr. Zellner and Mr. Wes Carter any question that she possibly has. It's the Ask Z and
She's
Wes Carter edition of the Thrivetime Show. And as always, Z, 3, 2, 1, boom.